Today, we are joined by the boss mom herself. She is the author, podcaster, community leader, coach, you name it, she does it. Dana Malstaff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here, Mark.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been watching your story unfold here over the past few years. You've done a lot of amazing things. And I kind of want to start here because there's a lot of different conversations we could have, Dana. But I want to start with this. At what moment did you feel, okay, I need to start my entrepreneurial journey? Did that happen before or after children?
It happened before, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs experienced what I did, which it was less of a choice and more of a throw off a cliff sort of situation. Um, so I was working for a company in Columbus, Ohio. The husband and wife were married. They were getting a divorce. Everybody he had hired on the marketing side was kind of getting pushed out, and I saw an opportunity, and I basically said, "Hey, I'll go find another job. Give me 90 days, and we'll make it work because I'm all about." Trying to get ahead of things, right? And so I found one company that I wanted to work for, and I said, if I don't get this job, then I think starting my own business. And they had brought in like a facilitator, a consultant, several months before to help talk through the culture of the company because it was growing so fast. And he had kind of taken me under his wing, and he'd been whispering in my ear, you could make way more money just consulting. And I was already making really great money, but I was like, I don't know. And so he kept putting that in my ear. So when this happened, I was like, well, if I don't get this job, then I'm going to start my own business. And basically they called me up and they said, it was between you and this one guy, but he had this one thing that you didn't have. So we're going with him, but God, we wish we had another spot because we really loved you. And I was like, oh, there's something in my brain that clicked that went, if I was a consultant, you wouldn't have to hire me. You wouldn't need to have a full position open. You wouldn't need to, and I wouldn't have to pretend to like all the people in your company and be friends with all of them,
Right.
and I would be able to just come in and deal with whatever problem it was we were solving. And then I could leave and I could just date you and not marry you. And I really love that idea. And I think that is the thing in my brain that clicked that went, oh, it's not just that I could do consulting. It's that consulting is way more fun than,
Well, it gives you
than
more
working for
control,
somebody.
right? It gives you control over your life. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fearful. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's also more responsibility. More control is more responsibility, and that's scary. But yeah, it's just. But I will say, you have those moments where something just clicks in your brain, and you go, and then you just start thinking differently, and you're not sure why that happened. Unfortunately, well, I guess not unfortunately, but unplanned, I would say, was it on New Year's, my last day of my job. Everybody took me out. We had tequila shots, got me wasted. I got pregnant. So the usual ways with my husband. So, which he's always joking. He's like, that's way too much information. And I was like, well, I feel like business owners should be able to handle it. If you can't handle it, you're not going to be able to handle business.
I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and let's just say that things can happen over international waters. And I'm not going to say any more, Joe. I'm not going to say any more, JoJo. What happens over international waters stays over international waters. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And then so I was basically pregnant and starting my business at the same time. Didn't know how to do either, but wanted to be good at both. Felt really alone, really isolated. I wasn't in a place in Columbus, Ohio, where anybody was doing what I was doing, having babies or starting businesses. And when we moved out to California when my son was 3 months old, because that's where I'm from, and I had said, I want to be closer to my family. It was not a hard sell. It was the middle of winter in Columbus, Ohio. And he was like, I will quit my job tomorrow.
Wow.
And we got here and everybody here was entrepreneurs. And there was a ton of moms starting businesses. And I started to realize I wasn't crazy. I just was hanging around the wrong people. And then a whiles later, like 2 years later, when I was pregnant with my daughter, is when I decided to write Boss Mom, because I said, you know what? I don't want anybody to feel alone and isolated and crazy like I did. I don't want anybody to feel like they're pregnant or have kids or was staying home, but now they want to start something and they feel this passion to do something. And for people to be like, no, don't leave the security of a job, or no, you can't be a mom and have a business, or whatever it is somebody around them is telling them. Even if they say it with love, it's just with misunderstanding. It's like, I don't want anybody to have to feel that way. So we're going to start a community and a space, and I'm going to write the book, and we're going to have the podcast, and we're going to go all in. so that, because there's too many smart women that just have brilliant ideas, brilliant inventions, brilliant strategies, just brilliant all the things and talents, and they should be able to, to put those out into the world and not feel like there's something wrong or they should feel guilty about it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what being an after hours entrepreneur is all about. It's saying, hey, I've got these responsibilities, but that doesn't mean I
Hmm.
leave my life behind. It doesn't mean I lose all my ambitions. I don't lose me. And I think that's a really important thing that you did, Dana, was decide this is me. This is what drives me forward, because I think you
Hmm.
end up resenting everything around you if you don't get
Yeah.
clear on who you are and what your goals are. So, obviously, when you're starting a new business like this and you're jumping into uncharted waters, there's going to be a lot of mistakes moving forward. So I'm just really, really thrilled to have you here, because today I want to kind of go through your program, Nurture to Convert. Okay. Nurture to
Yes.
Convert. Hey, Mark here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let YouTube know you're enjoying this video. Let me know you're enjoying this video. All right, let's get back into this episode. So let's start at the beginning, because you're basically giving us the framework to craft an entire business from the beginning is essentially what we're doing. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think you it's best if you have an idea of what you want to do,
Okay.
right? If you have no idea, and people, I was not getting interviewed a couple weeks ago, and somebody asked me, Dana, if somebody doesn't know what they want to do, they don't know what they're good at, what they, where do they start? And I was just like, well, I mean, they're not. If you don't have any idea of what problem you want to solve, then you don't really have a business, right? So you
Mm.
got to start figuring out what problem do you want to solve, because you can absolutely be a freelancer and just do work for people, do admin work for people, and that's a good place to start, right? But eventually, you're going to find out something you're good at, something you enjoy, a methodology you like, something along those lines, and then you come into the biggest challenge, which is what Nurture to Convert solves. The biggest challenge, which is, I have a skill. I would like to sell you that skill. I would like to sell you either content or my time or whatever it is. I don't know how to get in front of people. I don't know how to for people to listen to me. I don't know how to get them in consistently. I don't know how to, do it and run my life at the same time. And therefore they get stuck in what I call the momentum trap, which is actually the
Mm.
fourth book I'm working on. That speaks about this really horrifying place that so many people and a lot of your audience find themselves, which is they're getting some momentum, right? They've
Mm.
got some following. They've got some people in their email list. They've got some clients. They've got people telling them they're awesome, but maybe not buying from them, or clients that take up all their time so they don't have time to work on their business. And they feel enough momentum to feel success, but they don't have enough time or systems to break free and actually start to scale. And it's
Love
a
it.
it's a sad, lonely, we call it the circle of sadness. It's very
Yeah.
hard to get out of,
It's
but
like
once you do, it's great.
yeah. It's like building your own prison that you live in, and you're stuck on that hamster wheel of working in your business and not on your business. And I'm with you there. It's probably one of the most challenging jumps to go on. And I just want to put it out there as well. Where Dana's going to take you is from that. I have an idea. Now I just need to figure out how to monetize it. If you don't have your idea yet, the best advice I can give you is to just start doing something. Just
Yeah.
do something. For Pete's sakes, turn off Netflix and just do something. So let's assume that we have that something figured out. So let's kind of
Okay.
start from the beginning. We need to build authority, right? So tell me a little bit more about how we can build authority here in 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, well, I think one of the huge lies for our people in our space and the people that are getting into the online spaces, you hear, like Gary Vee will say, more content. If you create more content, I saw another tool come out that says this is the best tool ever. It takes one video and it breaks it up into 25 things, so you can post it in every platform that's ever been created, including the ones that are going to, 10 that are going to come out tomorrow. It's going to be great because if you're in more places, then that's better. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that keep people from actually building authority, because what it does is you're diluting yourself, right? Say you're in a crowd of 100 people and you're yelling. Is anybody going to hear you? Right? No. The smaller the crowd, the easier it is to talk to somebody. If you've ever been in a bar where you're like sitting, I must be the person that's getting old, because I'm like, I can't hear you. I can't do the uns places anymore. It's that thing. So you don't want to dilute yourself. I think building authority is about consistently showing up in a space. So number one is stop trying to be everywhere. Anybody who tells you that being everywhere, like Gary Vee has an entire entourage of people that are everywhere for him, and I'm pretty sure he just doesn't sleep and he's a robot.
Well, I
So
think
I'm not sure he really
I
counts.
want to talk about this just a little bit because this is certainly a huge problem that people run into.
Hmm.
I do personally, I fall a little bit more into the Gary Vee camp of there is real estate out there online just ready to be
Hmm.
taken. So you really want to, I believe that you should be showing up on a lot of different places. The problem, though, that you can get sucked into is that you're so focused on creating content everywhere that you're not actually pushing your business forward, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about systems here in a moment. But, for me, I've brought on some team members to supplement me because I realized what I wanted to do. And I was like, I, it's not possible. There's only one me. I got two kids. It's just not going to happen, right?
Hmm.
All right, cool. So we're starting
Well,
off.
and let me do this because there's different kinds of people where it works for. There are people that love to be online. They love to engage. They love to comment.
Yeah.
They're in their Instagram. They're in their Facebook. They're tweeting. They're doing all these things. And there's a certain kind of personality that enjoys that. There's also a ton of people that don't. That it's very stressful. They don't like it. And I would say I don't I and I love that we disagree on these things because I think everybody should hear like different ways of doing things because it's not that everything's either one's wrong. It's that they just work for different
It's
people.
knowing yourself.
But I do
Yeah.
think I do think that this idea of being everywhere, right, is you can go and dabble in different places in the very beginning, right? But once you find something that works, like for us, Facebook groups worked, and it was what worked best for us, or what's worked best for what I enjoy, my methodology, my belief system about community. It's what worked best. I have a friend that Instagram is her space. I have another friend that Twitter is her space, right? Another person where LinkedIn is their space. So where you find your space, then I actually think that until you have systems and you are actually able to scale, you have everything on the back end taken care of, that I don't think you should be everywhere.
Yeah.
I think there is a place to expand. There is a place to start going in and testing out these other areas. But I think that until you are able to push somebody into a system that doesn't require your time, an evergreen system, that you're just diluting that ability for you to grow. And when we talk about authority, the big thing that we teach in Nurture to Convert is, I love Simon Sinek. He talks about your why, but the problem is not everybody knows their why. In fact, businesses and people have been trying to figure out the purpose of their life and their business for years and years and years. And so we get people that are just like continuing on this hamster wheel of not knowing exactly. They create a mission statement that's very generic, and then they don't know what they're doing. Like they don't, and they think if I just push this why, if I just push this purpose, this idea, this passion, that I'll be able to make it work. And I tell them, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Start formulating key opinions, because the problem with us creating content all the time and being everywhere all the time is you're basically just continually saying stuff, right? Because in your desire to create something new, you're not consistently repeating your opinions or repeating what you want. So what happens is somebody goes, well, I don't know. You could be about creating systems, but you could also be about, making courses, or you could also be about a group coaching program. You could also be about events, because you've talked about all of those things. So when somebody asks about something, I don't know when to recommend you because there's too many options. I don't know what you're known for. And so when we start to have our key opinions, we have them in 3 areas. We have them in the industry. So what are your key opinions about the industry, especially things that are disruptive, like me talking about don't create so much content, don't be in all of the places, is disruptive. And it's not necessarily disruptive in all the circles, right? But there's a lot of people that go, no, I'm supposed to create content every week, and then I'm supposed to put it all these places and be on social media and say things all the time.
Well,
And I'm
I
like,
think
no,
the
you
key
say
is
the same thing.
I think the key is being consistent, right? Like you said, trying different things, find a system that works for you so you can be consistent. Because I agree. To me, probably one of the biggest turnoffs is when someone posts something on social media. I try to engage with them and it's crickets. And I look at their posts, and sure, they're posting pictures and videos, but they're not engaging with their audience. And I think that actually does negative equity. It's harmful to your brand, I think.
That is, but I think there's 2 kinds of consistency. So I agree at consistency of, if you're going to be somewhere, be there, right? Like, and that's why I think you can't be everywhere. Because if you're going to be somewhere, you're going to post, engage, connect with people, be grassroots, actually be a human being, right? but I don't necessarily agree from a consistency of content, right? Because when people say consistent, they're like, well, then I have to do a blog every week, or I have to do a thing every week. I have to put out content and ideas and come up with new things every week. And I think those are two different kinds of consistency, because if you are not repeating your idea, the finite number of ideas over and over and over again, like if you're going to be consistent, come up with 100 different ways to say the same thing
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again, so that you're drilling that message home. Like Simon Sinek is known for, your why, like, and be why, because it's the only thing he talked about for like 2 years, right? And I think we need to really try to say the same thing to different people, as opposed to saying different things to the same people.
So how
And I
can
think
we,
that
I just kind of want to confirm, because you brought up something just a moment ago, Dana, that I thought
Mhm.
was really, really good. And that's that you need to form core key opinions. So how can we actually form those key opinions? What does that actually look like from a practicality standpoint?
hmm Well, okay, so yeah, so the first one is your industry. You want to think about what about your industry are your specific opinions. So,
Mhm.
like I was saying, I have specific opinions about, about doing things with less content, right? Like, don't start a blog, create 5 pieces of core content, and then now you have space to share
Yeah.
those pieces of content over and over and over and over again, right? So there's the opinions about your industry. I have opinions about being evergreen versus launching. I believe there's such thing that's called is launch fatigue or launch PTSD or like all of those things. And my kids just always seem to get sick whenever I'm doing anything live. So I believe in evergreen, right? And so those are key opinions about how your industry works, how your industry should work, how your industry should change, myths about your industry. So key opinions that you can share, and you become more quotable, right? Because when you can say I have an opinion, I'm putting my, the line in the sand about how this should work in my space, whether it's real estate or coaching or, relationships or parenting or whatever it is. The second one is going to be how life is, right? So when you're talking about, I believe that as a mom, we should show our children like what that work is a positive word. Like we shouldn't have to go to work so that we can make enough money to do things we like. We should make money doing things we like. Like I
Mhm.
want to show my kids that. I believe that about life. I believe that we should like this idea that everybody says that you're perfect the way you are. No, you're not.
Right.
We're all, if we're not continually improving, and what's the point? You're enough, but you're not perfect. You're not good enough the way you are. You're enough, but we can always be better, and we should strive to be that way. So, how do you, opinions you have about life in general and how life should be led? Because some people are going to have opinions about being able to travel wherever they want, and some people are going to have opinions about planting roots in places, and some people are going to have opinions about being independent or being a unit or the way we treat people or things like that. And then the third one is tactics and strategies, right? So your opinion about like nurture to convert as a system. The system is an opinion. I have an opinion about where you should be, how you should present yourself there, the things you should create, and there's a particular flow. And because I have that proprietary, belief and opinion about the way something should work, then I'm able to talk about the strategies and tactics that reinforce that system, right? So I tell people, when you say, "Oh, well, it could you could do that a million ways," or I don't, I want to give them options. So I don't want to recommend this one thing. No, pick things you recommend. Pick a tool you like, pick a thing that works for you. You can change your mind later, but those things. So like when I go in, and you can go down to the granular level. I have an opinion that when you are in Facebook, that stop posting just stuff and information. Don't teach, facilitate and ask questions.
Hmm.
So when somebody comes in and they're like, "Let me tell you this motivating story that should actually be a blog post," we don't allow those in my group, and we don't do them. What I recommend is you ask a question that is almost like the icebreaker that people can't help but answer. You get a massive amount of engagement, so Facebook thinks you're cool. And then now you spend that time engaging with people there, and that's where the real relationship and awesomeness and actual conversions happen. But it's very specific, and it can take 20 minutes a day tops to do that. And so I have a very tactical belief about how you post in Facebook or post on social media. So it can go granular all the way up to the strategy of evergreen versus launch. But
Yeah.
those are the 3 things. And if you can form your 3 or 4 opinions in each of those, and then Don't say anything else but things that reinforce those opinions and build things that reinforce those opinions. Then you don't have to figure out your why or your purpose, because you have a core set of opinions that are become your become your foundation, your belief system.
Yeah, and if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything, right? So getting
Yeah.
some core principles, some core key opinions in place is really important. And I think a lot of that has to do with actually finding your niche and niching down, right? Because if you're broad and you're trying to appease everyone, you end up pleasing no one. And again, I just want to go
Mhm.
back to something I'd said earlier in this conversation. If you don't know, that's okay. You can still get started. And as you get to know your
Yeah.
audience, as you get to know their pain points, you get to know how to speak their language, you can continue to narrow that down. All right, cool. So again, we're kind of touching the tip of the iceberg here on the Nurture to Convert framework. You can find out everything that Donna's doing at nurturetoconvert.com. So let's move on. We've been talking about building authority. We've actually talked about content creation a little bit. I want to move right on to the leveraging social media.
Wait. Don't go there yet, because our
Okay.
create content is very specific.
Okay.
So the create content, because what we mainly talked about content, I consider mostly social content. It's
Okay.
marketing content, right? So there's a difference between marketing content, the posts you put on social media. This would be marketing content. Like you and me talking and interviewing each other is a form of marketing. It's people begin to, you're building authority because they're thinking that you've got great ideas.
And I'm sitting next to the boss mom, right? I'm sitting next to the boss mom.
Well, and yeah, there's clout by proximity.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're on, I get clout from you, you get clout from me. And it all works really well. But this kind of content to me is a marketing kind of content. It is something that builds loyalty, builds authority, builds interest, builds buzz, builds excitement, and pushes people to wherever you want them to go. So the create content in our Nurture to Convert system is actually the content that converts for you. It's the converting content. So what it is it is our simple funnel, right? Which I did not invent funnels, right? But I didn't even invent that we call them that. That's just become the popular word. But what it is it is a flow of an opt-in page or a piece of content, right? But generally an opt-in page or a webinar or something along those lines. And we are taking that into a thank you page that sells them a tiny, small, offering. We call them your easy yes, or gets them onto a call with you, and then leads them into a nurture system. We call our 90-day nurture system, where we use a very specific flow called our permission sandwiches, and it pulls them in so that you are able to you nurture them into a sense of loyalty, right? Is the people begin to believe that they are, and rightfully so, because it's authentic, believe that you're the right person for them because they like your language, the way you're talking. And so it's a flow where we give them permission to be who they are, so they know they belong with you, which is a very Seth Godin way, of doing it and talking about that, we're, you and me are alike, you belong here kind of thing.
Yeah, people like second, us do stuff like this,
yes,
right? Yeah,
yes, that's the exact quote. Yeah. And then second one is clout. So like interviews like this, or your authority platform where you're producing content that shows what you're talking about. Then we do training, which we either fill a gap or give a hack. And the fill a gap is where you change the way they think, and give a hack is you tactically show them how to get a quick win, right? And then we do recommend. So you're recommending things outside of yourself, whether it's a mic you use or a book you love or an affiliate program that you're joined with. It shows that you aren't just about yourself, but you want to connect them to outside things. Also, when they use those outside things, they feel more connected to you. And then we actually ask them to do something. We ask them to go watch a webinar, or to get on a call with you, or to buy a particular product, right? And then we do a feedback loop so they know that we actually care about their opinions, right? And then we do a permission, and we do the whole cycle again. And so you do 2 permission cycles every single month. And what it allows us to do is cycle people through, and we get higher conversions. My 7-figure clients have a whole year system. But what we do is we make everybody in the Nurture to Convert Society do a 90-day system. And so what that means is that every time they go get featured, or they do put a post out on social media or anything like that, and they get a lead, that lead, they don't have to do anything for that lead to be nurtured, and for 5 to 7% of those leads to become sales.
So you're saying
that system actually works.
You're saying it's all automated, the system that you're recommending. So they just get into your funnel, and if that's what you're saying, that's actually brilliant. Because if you're anything like me, you're trying to find that free time to spend with your kids, with your family. So I
Yeah,
love
because
that.
then 80% of your time can be spent on marketing,
Yeah.
right? Which is what you and I are doing, where you're getting featured, or you're producing content, or you're out on social media connecting with people, or you're going to events, or whatever that is. 80% of your time should be spent there, because you don't have to spend time creating the content that sells. You don't have to create all these new programs. The amount of people that go, I built this, so what do I build next? Like, get out of the cycle where you're spending 80% of your time building things that you could sell. Build something that can sell. Put it out into the world really fast, and just see that a couple people are going to buy it. Like, see if, honestly, if you put something out and 2% of a cold audience says yes to it, it is a scalable product,
Mm,
right? So stop trying to create new things to sell. Create a system to consistently sell something. And our email nurture system works great, because you can plug and play. So if you eventually decide, I'm going to sell something different, or I want to take this thing and turn it into a course or a group program or whatever, we know exactly what the purpose of each of the emails, so you can
right.
like replace out really simply. But then you can spend 80% of your time doing what we're doing. I could do all days of a day of interviews, and I don't have to worry that I'm not going to make sales, because anybody who comes into my system, anybody who comes into my world, I know that every 10 people that get onto my list, one of those people is going to pay me money. Right. and
Brilliant.
and so a lot of times, if they're joining the society, it's only $47, but it's every month. That adds up. And so now I can just be a marketing machine very consistently. And then what you were talking about being in everywhere and leveraging platforms and
Hmm.
going out and and finding that real estate, that's when that actually turns into money.
Right.
Otherwise, a lot of people are doing that first without the system set up, and then they're finding that they're just exhausted but not making the money. Or they're making money, but they're doing it as a client or an agency or something like that, which is just work. I'm inherently lazy, so I'm like, let's just not.
Super, super smart. And you can, of course, join the membership program at nurturetoconvert.com, where Dana is she's going to give it all to you. She's going to give you the framework. She's going to give you the proprietary system so that you can execute on this, because this is absolutely brilliant. We're running a little bit short on time, but I want to briefly touch on the final two pieces here, which we've been kind of sprinkling in here, which is leveraging social media's phase 3. So you kind of touched on it here, Dana. We want to leverage social media now that we've got our systems in place, we've got our offering. What does it look like when we move into phase 3?
Yeah. So leveraging social media is, we touched on it in the sense of, we teach people to build buzz. So we teach people to not just constantly push out and say, I've got a sale, I've got a spot, like, get on a call with me. And we teach them to build buzz through questions. So asking really great questions, and we have 5 or 6 different kinds of questions. You can ask them for their opinion. You can get decision support. You can ask them to like things like to celebrate with you. So there's a set of kinds of questions that we teach you how to ask, and we call it your buzz plan. And you start asking those questions, and then you're engaging very, very easily and simply, and Facebook starts to then show you to more people organically. If you have a Facebook group, which a good portion of our audience ends up having
Mhm.
one. We have a whole course on how to do that. Then you organically are getting leads. So we get 1,000 people into our email list a month, just organically from our Facebook group, because Facebook tells people that we're cool, right? So we show you how to not spend so much time on social media, but leverage that engaging
Mm.
piece through that buzz plan. And then we show you how to inline mention, which is the real ninja brilliance of it, because instead of just on the nose saying, I've got this thing, buy it, we show you how to sort of NLP. It's not really NLP, but it feels that way, because what you're doing is you're just mentioning things. Because there's a really good book called The Creative Curve, and he talks about how there's a familiar to novel, right? And people want familiar. It's like, I want to know. I'm scared that there's a bear in that cave, so I'm just not going to go in there. And you have a very small percentage of people that are like, I want novel, I'm a thrill seeker, but most people want familiarity. And so when you are out in your space and you are brilliantly just mentioning your program, mentioning the name, like mentioning, like, this whole idea of marketing where we hide what we're selling until we surprise them with it at the end of a funnel, isn't
Yeah.
as good as mentioning, like, in passing. So I'm not actively selling, but when I'm doing a training or talking about a thing or engaging, I'm like, I know we just talked about this in the Nurture to Convert Society. Like I was just talking about this with a client who, who just implemented this system. And you're in line mentioning all these things, building up the familiarity. And then people wake up in the middle of the night going, I need that system. I need that thing. Right. And so we show you how to do that so that leverage is truly the word, because you're not just pushing, you become a magnet, and it's very subtle, so it doesn't feel massively salesy, and it actually is authentic and wants to know what people's opinions are and engage with people in the right way. And we find that it works like gangbusters.
Yeah, well, it's certainly working for you right now. And I know a lot of people struggle with that balance of, I'm either trying to sell way too hard. Please don't do that. I'm not interested in buying your Bitcoin or whatever. And then you're not selling enough, which is equally disastrous. You have to find that right. It's all psychology. And so having proper leadership and membership can really help with that. Okay, the final portion here is growing sales. So this is the final.
Okay, so once you have the system together, right? Once you have the system together, then what we train in there is when you're on a call, what's the psychology of actually closing a call, right? If you have a larger program, how do you create the webinar and create the sales page, create the things to sell a larger system, a larger paid product, right? So we show you how to do this. We show you how to we have proposal templates and things in there. If you want to create a membership. So what we do is we give you a short list of things that you can do to now scale and accentuate what you're doing and get more financially out of the people that are coming into your list. So getting them to buy more, getting them to stay longer, doing things like that. We also include in there, how are you then increasing conversion? So once you have people into your email list, you're going, okay, every month I'm going to look at my email list and say, how can I increase the open rates?
So give me a quick takeaway. What's one way that we can actually get those open rates to happen? Because that's a big challenge with emails. Give me something hot. Give me a hot take.
So generally, if your open rates are less than 20%, actually, if your open rates are like 80%, then you are not talking to a cold audience, and that's a problem in itself. So if you're sitting there going, no, Dana, everybody opens my emails, then you are not talking to enough strangers. So that's just a flat out thing right there. Good way to think about it. Your open rate should be somewhere between 20 and 30%. If they're under 20%, the first thing you do is you change the subject line. They're not opening it. The subject line is wrong. So what we call is we create a tweak list. The tweak list is 4 or 5 different options of subject lines. And if you're not getting the open rates, once a month, we have a little worksheet that people use. And once a month you go in, and if it's under 20%, you flip out the subject line to one of the other ones that we brainstormed, and we see what works. If your click rate's under 2%, right? And again, if you're getting a click-through rate of, 50, 60%, the audience is, your gangbusters, the odds are you're not talking to enough of a cold audience to bring them in to nurture them. 2%, if it's under 2%, you've got a problem. And what we can do is change the position of the link. Look to make sure we're not giving too much away that they aren't enticed to click it, right? And then what you do is you have pixels on the pages that you're sending them to, the sales pages that you're sending them to, the training pages, the whatever it is we're sending them to. And now we can start doing what is the most successful Facebook ads you do, which is retargeting ads.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of sending ads out to cold audiences all the time, right, you're doing things and building authority, getting featured, maybe having a Facebook group, having your, a podcast or an authority platform. You're not out on social media all the time if you don't want to be. And you can now pull people in, get them to visit these pages, get a small percentage to buy, and then do retarget ads to all the people that have viewed those pages, and then you can get actual sales for dollars per lead. I mean, there's really cool ways to do it where you are not trying to do a million things or make things over complex. There's really a simple way to do it, but you have to be willing to say no to a lot of other things. Like that's the key. This is why most people don't do what we teach, which is it's just hard to say no. It's hard to say no to all the options, to all the possibilities, to all the stuff that they could be doing. And so they just don't. Being this simple, it like breaks people's brains.
Well,
they don't want to do it.
It's, I think that a lot of people tend to overthink this stuff because there's a lot of noise. It's really tough. So I really appreciate what you're building with the Nurture to Convert framework. We're talking with boss mom, Dana Malstaff. And before I let you go, Dana, I just got to ask you a couple quick rapid fire questions. I know we're running a little late here, but a couple quick questions. So my first question would be, what item does every business owner need to have that costs less than $50?
Ooh, what item does well, I would say ClickUp. It used to be Trello, so but a project management system is what I
Hmm.
would say. Because our phones nowadays have a nice camera, have it, have a good enough like it's we generally already have the things to film things and get on social media. So I would say that you having a thing like we use ClickUp, we use a Scrum methodology to have really simple projects so we can keep priorities, and I would add on that to buy the book Essentialism and read it like it's a Bible because it will help keep you simple, help you say no to things. And if you couple those things together, then you actually wake up in the morning and do things you say you're going to do and stop doing things that don't actually serve you or make you money or do them in the wrong order, which can be just as bad. And yeah, and that would be the place I start because time management is everybody's biggest problem.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I'm with you there. And that was two. That was two for the price of one there. Okay, cool. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself that hustling is an evil word, and I would tell myself that the idea that you're smart, so that means you can do everything, is a dumb way to think, and that the most successful people recognize that being smart means that you do only what you are best at and you let everybody else and pay everybody else to do what they are best at, and that's where the success really happens. Because I think when you're smart, you're just like, oh well, I could figure that out, but figuring that out is just complex. Like simplify, just it's keep it simple, and say no to everybody.
I love it. I love it. Well, Dan, I can't thank you enough for joining me and all the after hours entrepreneurs out there. This was just a masterclass in actually clarifying, getting clear on your social media strategy, your funnel building. Absolutely love the conversation, Dana. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.